Okay, so we're here to talk about an item that's been on the back burner from a vision perspective for quite a while now. Um, we have this concept of new release form, and we also have a new tag form. And we need to make a decision on if we want to go forward with one or the other. Mainly, we need to focus on, do we want to support both forms and both ways of creating tags or releases inside of GitLab? But then also, on a bigger topic, how would we support a draft release or a release without a tag in whatever direction we go in? So we have this issue, and I can go ahead and present my screen so we can just kind of view all of the content together at the same time. This issue that Nathan created a few months ago about updating the new tag page to reuse the new release form. And initially, this would say that we are aligning, and Nathan, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we would be replacing the way that people create new tags from the new tags page to create a new tag, but also release at the same time.
Yeah, that was kind of my initial thought, is that the new release page and the new tag page would look really similar. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that idea anymore. I think Vlad may have convinced me otherwise, but that was my original idea.
Okay. And we have a couple of thoughts from Vlad in the comments, but I think his idea was, well, we could support both new tags forms and new releases, because the use case could be that people only want to create a tag and not a release. Although that's divergent from what already exists in the market as standard, which is what GitHub does, which is create a release with each tag, right? So currently we're going ahead.
As Vlad pointed out, even if we do remove that from the UI, you can still do it through a git push.
Right. And if we were to take away the ability of just creating a tag without a release, this could have different implications for the way people are using tags today. But it would also mean that patterns of behavior that people who are potentially coordinating releases in the UI today could be different, meaning that they may be creating the tag and then updating the tag with release notes after the fact to pull it onto the releases page. So there's some behaviors that we may need to change with either documentation or just, coaching customers to do things differently. I don't think that that's that much of a problem. What I am worried about, though, is the overhead of supporting two forms in two places that pretty much do the same thing. So I'd love to talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on that. Hey, Vlad.
Can I'll just I think the issue of having two forms that are actually slightly different and but fill similar functions is, I don't know, is a little bit confusing from a UI perspective, do you think? Because so originally probably the new tag form was just create a tag, but then at some point we've got, where you can also kind of create a release. It does make sense to me to, when you create a release, well, at the moment releases are always based on tags, right? So it's necessary to, and it makes sense to just create the tag at the same time. But do we have too much functionality in the new tag page, perhaps?
Yeah, and that was, I think, the main feedback from when we showed the initial prototypes of the new release page, where you had the option to create just tag or kind of expand and collapse the rest of the form, and you see the release form. And then people were very overwhelmed with having all the information related to releases in the forms page. But in a way, that's what GitHub does as well, right? They give you this contextual option to choose what you want to create at that moment, given the fact that you can go back to your tag and create a release from that tag. Oh.
Would it be clearer? I don't know if it would be clear. Would it be clearer if on the tag page we just had, okay, you just create the tag, and then once a tag is created, there's then a link or some second step that would then allow you to to essentially go to the release if you wanted to, but then you would be presented with the same release creation. You go to the other form and it'd be pre-populated or something like that. I don't know. Just thinking.
I kind of like that idea because we still kind of keep the separation between the tags and the releases. Like you can create a tag without a release, but then we're always creating releases through the same flow. We don't have two forms to create releases. So I think regardless of what you do, we should get rid of the two paths to create releases. And I think that'd be a good option.
And so, yeah, so if we have some way though to link, so you still go to the second page to create the release, but maybe when it goes back to present the tag, there's a link that says, do you want to create this, turn this into a release, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but then it will just go to the other page.
Yeah, and then you still have the ability. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What if it's like a checkbox where you have the lightweight tag form, but then it says, I want to also create a release when I do this?
We have the prototypes, and we interviewed people with the exact form, Jackie.
I think that was a toggle, though.
Oh yeah, there was a toggle and expand collapse. That's true.
Yeah, so the toggle collapse was the interaction that wasn't preferred, but here it would be, they fill out the tag information, they click the checkbox, I also want to create a release, it clicks save, and then maybe that's when it populates the additional release fields that they could then fill out at the same time. So then the actions in the back end is tag is created, and then it redirects the user to the releases page.
Yeah.
I think it could be kind of a nice, something like that. Something where we kind of allow them to create tags as is, but then we give them an indication and a quick way to create a release off that tag once we've created it.
Yeah. Would we remove buttons from like, how these buttons that tell people new tag versus new release, how do we want to direct people on that behavior?
Would something like we just don't even ask them up front and you just create a tag, and then the tag is created, and then maybe there's a link saying create a release on this tag, so that you're not having to make a decision up front. The only negative that is it would be a two-step, right? Because but maybe you could, just to keep it as simple as possible, this is a tag, and then I would like to create a release from this tag as a link.
I like that, because we could have the option of like I have a tag and then I have maybe a release that's been created, and I want to associate an already created tag to that release. Like we would we would fracture the current relationship between releases and tags. Meaning on the releases page, you could create a release and it's an empty release. It doesn't have a tag on it. And then you have the option to say link an existing tag.
So I noticed the option of, there was some discussion about releases without tags, which I know we're going to. I'm a bit hesitant because I think it's going to be a big change to do that. I think the eventual point could be exactly what you're describing, Jackie, but I think we should take it maybe in two steps. Like first, it goes to the page, and then there's a tag, and then as a separate piece of work, we break apart releases and tags.
We had a conversation with Marin earlier when we were validating group releases, and he said something that was interesting, because he believes that if a release is created, then everything's done. So that means that a tag and a release in his world are exactly the same thing. They're not different. In other enterprises and customer worlds, a release is a workflow, and a tag is that moment when code has been released or like a production change has been made, and
Yep.
that would be one event that's contained within this greater workflow of a release. And that's kind of what we're going up against when we compete with tools like Urban Code, Plutora, Zebia Labs, and other orchestration tools that allow you to sequence and plan how releases are delivered or executed against. So when we're looking at like at scale, the tag equals release is not always true for the enterprise. So
oh yeah, I completely understand that and accept that we have to move to that. I'm just saying as part of this particular issue, kind of park that and then make it a subsequent issue of disconnecting the tag from the release.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel it'd be too much in one issue.
I agree with you that would, this is more of like a conceptual statement in that we want to support draft releases in the future. So whatever path we take right now, we should think of that as an iterative step to this idea of eventually supporting something like a draft release in the future.
Yeah, because that was a use case, right? I think, I'm not sure if it was Martin, but there was someone that said that they just wanted to create like this shell for a release, and then they could just come back and add whatever information they want.
Add
that
the
could
tag
be
and yeah, exactly.
Do we support changing the tag on a release once it's created? Or is there a use case for that?
You have to create a new release. Like what people are doing today, I think, are creating the release with a fake tag. It's a real tag, but it's not indicative of the deployment.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they kind of rename their new release with an updated tag. That has release notes on it. That's actually the published version.
You can update the tag through the API. So we do support that at a technical level, but not through the UI currently.
But we do have an open issue about allowing people to select a different tag, because that would help support this idea of like upcoming and latest tag versions as well.
Can I just make another general comment about the backend stuff? Nathan, you're talking about, which endpoints are currently available, et cetera, in the API. I mean, in my mind, extending the API is probably one of the less difficult tasks, right? If we need to make a small change to the API, then, I think we should just, if it'll support a different workflow or whatever, we should just do it, I think. Would you agree with that, Vlad?
I'm not sure if I get your idea entirely, but
if we need to make a change to the API, I think, in order to support a different front end, I think we should just do it. I think the complexity in this is all the fact that we've got this kind of bi-directional relationship between releases and tags. Actually.
It's definitely quite easy to change the releases API right now. I'm quite concerned about this renaming tag right now, because tag is also like an ID basically right now for the releases, and we have these features, for example, as like static assets for releases, and if I recall correctly, it basically makes like releases, tag name, something like downloads, and the path for the static download. So basically, if user changes the tag name on the release, it also changes the static path, and any other path related to releases. And since I'm speaking right now, I agree with the previous idea. I quite like the idea of basically adding an ability to quickly create a release from tag after tag is created, but not like adding any checkboxes. So basically, like you creating a tag, and after that you redirect it to either tag page or list index tags page, where there is a button to like create release from the tag if the release is not present there.
Or could the drop down button, could the create button be either create and then have a drop down to create, tag and a release or something? I don't know. I guess that's a UI decision.
Currently we have like two pages, right? One for tags and one for releases, and I guess it makes sense to have a new release button on the releases page and new tag on tags page. And if it's easy to add the release information after you created the tag from the tags page, like I don't see anything better than that. And also remember that some people use tags not for releases. So like maybe they don't need all these controls. Even the checkbox will be redundant for them. I don't know.
Not to get too deep into like how we implement something like that, but there is, I see in the pajamas, we do have a toast control. We don't use that very much currently, but that could be something like you create a new release, it redirects you back, and then there's a toast pop-up that shows and says, you create a new tag, do you want to create a new release off this? That could be one option.
So
or something similar to that.
toast is the one that appears and then kind of disappears. It's like a mini flash message.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's too mobile, I would say.
Yeah, we don't use those in that context. We would use a banner, for example, in the top to highlight.
Sure.
Or I think there's another component, it's a new one. I'm not sure if it's a drawer, but there's something that is like contextual that stays on, it's an overlay in the screen. And I'm also very fond of this idea of continuity because Jack, we talked about this recently, that trying to connect the functionality. So if we can have tags and then from tags there is something in the UI, something on the product that says, hey, you can also create a release from this tag. Here's the way to do that, a call to action or whatever. Perhaps that would give a different, it will give us a different feedback from having everything in one form and instead of overwhelming people with releases and tags all coupled together. I'm curious.
What I'm hearing a little bit from this conversation is that we don't really want the new tag page to reuse the new release form. Like we don't want that to happen. We still want to keep them separate. Is that accurate from everybody's thoughts here?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think too. Yep.
And I think I like that.
Separate but linked in some way.
Well, it's like they triggering behaviors, like
exactly.
Like having GitLab recognize that this is a common path and making it really easy to enter into the next step. I think that's acceptable from my point of view. What I don't want to do is erode the adoption of releases by making it really hard to create your release once your tag's been created. I wouldn't want, say, here's the worst case scenario in my head based off of the user interviews. They create their tag and then they have to go to the releases page, create the release, and then manually associate those. Like
no, we don't want that.
we do not. That is the worst concept that we could, that would erode all the things that we've been doing to really make releases easy to use. So I think that we can comment on this issue and say that actually we're going to close this out because we want the forms to be the same, or we want to keep status quo. We don't want to change the forms. And then as far as other features that we need to do to make that experience easier, it sounds like I need to create a couple of issues around adding a link on the tag that says create a release from this tag, and then add a feature that allows you to, once your tag is created, like a modal pops up or something, or banner that allows you that notifies you that you should create a release from this. I do feel like we're going to get a request to automatically create releases from tags, but that might be where we point people to automatic release generation in the YAML file and have them create that as a part of their CD workflow rather than manually or API.
But under this scenario, you can still go to the releases page and just create the tag directly, right? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, but in my head, I think we're going to fracture the workflow. Like when somebody goes to a releases page, they're only going to be creating a release not tied to a tag. And then in that new release page, they'll have the option to select an already created tag or something.
Yeah, I just wrote to the agenda. I think we like keep these forms separate, but we currently have release notes on the tag page, so I would remove them. They also create some kind of technical debt, and which I would be super happy to remove. And the other note is that on this index tags page or the tag page, if release is already there, we should probably get some information, like show some information about it. I mean, if you go to the tags page, you should see that like for this free, you can create a release associated with these tags. And for this free, release is already created, and maybe some small summary about it. I don't know, that's how it looks in my head at least.
We do have a button that says, like when you have a tag that is not associated to a release, there is a button, and if you click there, you go to the release page with that tag pre-selected. So you can already do that. But indeed, we don't have like any way to sort or show in that list that these are your tags, pure tags, and these are your release tags. I think that's perhaps what would facilitate, I think, what you're saying.
No,
So,
I didn't mean any sorting. I just meant that like there was basically two cases, right? The button and some small info. If we already have it, then basically what we just discussed about like the continuous workflow is kind of already done. We maybe just need to highlight this button or something.
So Vladdy, you're saying on the tags page, there would be an indicator if there's already a release associated with the tag, and if not, there'd be a way to create the release from that tag. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
So
that.
we already kind of have that a little bit. If you have release notes, or if there's a release, we show the release notes on the tag page underneath the tag, and then we have a little link that says release, and you click it, and it goes to the release.
Really?
And then if you put it, yeah, I don't, Jackie, I don't know if I can share my screen. It says like, yeah, thanks. I'll just show it real quick. So we do have, like, this is the GitLab, our main GitLab projects page. So you can see like here, this tag has a massive, it's kind of unwieldy at the moment. But,
oh, wow.
So it prints all the release notes underneath the tag, and then there's a link to it right here.
Okay.
And then the other thing I was going to note is that if you click, there is a edit button next to a tag. And this goes to this little edit release notes page. And so I think we should also remove this page if we're removing it on the other one.
And just go to the release form.
I have an issue for
exactly.
this already.
Yeah.
Because I agree that it doesn't make sense to be able to edit release notes from the tag.
Yeah. Cool.
This looks, I got to say, this whole thing where the whole release notes are all in the list, I think it should at least be collapsible.
What do we think about adding a tab for release tags versus regular tags?
Yeah.
So like here you could see, you have like an option to see all your tags, and then you can see release tags.
Yeah.
What about if we add there's kind of a filtering at the top. We've got filter by tag name, and we could add another entry to a checkbox, for example. Just show, tags only.
Because if this pretty much shows two types of tags, and we do that in other places as well, right? We do with the issues, milestones, open close, etc. Especially like in projects like pajamas, and in GitLab you've seen that the release description is super long. This page becomes a mess as well for how you interact.
I mean,
I still like I don't know if I love the idea of separating them into two different lists, like, because they're still all tags, but I definitely think it might make sense to have some kind of filtering or some way to alter the view to only see certain ones.
You can have like all release tags and just tags, something like that.
I mean, the fact that we've got a number of different, I think we've got 3 different places to basically do release notes, right? So if we can just have the one form, I think that would be a big, a big simplifier, which is kind of, it's always good to have. Software is always better when it's simple.
Mm.
So I agree that we should remove release notes from tags. Yeah. The tags page is kind of upsetting for me. It just doesn't look really easy to use. So Hannah, you and I might need to do some validation on what users think about tags. Mainly because, from a developer standpoint, y'all are probably doing everything in the command line or API. You're probably not going in the UI messing with tags.
Sure, exactly.
But it's the release managers or the build managers that are working across branches and commits and declaring a release candidate, like our delivery team in the UI. They're not always looking inside an API for the latest, branch or change to production, for example. So we may want to just validate with release managers how that page plays out. Otherwise, if we just make it super intuitive to create a release from the tag, and then they don't even have to go to the tag page. They don't ever have to look at that page. They can just look at releases, since they only care about releases. So allowing them to choose also create a release from a tag. They don't ever have to go to the tag page. They could just look at a drop-down menu to select the tag as a release manager.
I know this is a bit outside the scope of this meeting, but what about also, like I had the issue creating a tag and/or release from a commit or a branch, as you also suggested, Jackie?
We validated that with
Okay.
Marin earlier. Just asked him a question on that, and he said that would be a really cool thing to do.
Oh, okay,
so
great. Yeah,
that's great. Like, I feel like I'm going to keep asking that question to everybody I talk to, all the customers I talk to, just as a solution validation. And looking at other release systems, they look at SHAs too. So
sure.
if you're looking at SHA, then it's a commit or a branch. It's agnostic to what you're looking at.
It's not a big saver, but it's just kind of like, it just makes it nicer because you don't have to like copy the ref, and the only thing is, like on the branches page especially, there's already quite a lot of stuff there. But I mean, a feature like this, which is not probably going to be super frequently used, also probably with the delete, I mean, you put them behind a ... drop down and start to put buttons behind there, maybe. I don't know. I guess we would need to validate what are the most frequently used buttons.
A small question. Did I understood you right that like we're discussing adding like possibility to create tag from like any SHA from I mean, as far as I remember, currently you can create tag in the GitLab's interface out from any Git ref. It may be branch, it can be other tag, it can be...
Yeah, so what that means though is the workflow is, you go to for example, the commits page, and there is a copy button. You copy it, and then you go back to the tags page and you paste it into the search. So, you can of course you can do it now. It's just that it's switching between a couple of different pages,
And really, to be like super picky on this, it would be creating a release from a branch or commit. So it's not necessarily a tag.
Okay, sure.
So if we were to you can do it from a tag, but then the user has to go through and say, I want to create a release from this tag I just created. So it's like a 12-click process for them if they're using the UI.
Right now, you just can go to the new releases page, enter the new tag name, enter SHA, and it will just work, if I remember. Oh, we want like some simple search for like my last commit or something
exactly,
like that.
Like latest, the populated list for that.
You can always like just write master there, I don't know, in the simplest case.
You're right, yeah.
Well, I think it defaults to master. By the way, I noticed I could create releases and tags on the GitLab, which I'm a bit surprised. I didn't create any, obviously.
Oh, like the actual project.
On the main
Yeah.
repo, yeah. If you click the button, and I mean, I didn't press save, but you know.
We have an open issue where we're discussing permissions because anybody with deployer or maintainer can just go in there and wreck shop on that list.
Yeah. Right. Well, anyway, it's a GitLab employee, so I guess it's not going to happen. But still,
It does seem a little bit wide open. One other thing I wanted to mention too, if most of what we're talking about, there's one other piece of work we'd need to do, which is to make the new release page support basing off of an existing tag. Right now, anytime you go to the new releases page, you're creating a brand new tag. So if we wanted to support that workflow where you're on the tag page and then you create a tag and then you jump over to the new release page, we need to support the ability to have that existing tag selected. And I think that's kind of a nice feature to have anyway.
But can you not paste in the existing? Is it not possible currently? Excuse my ignorance. Like create the tag and then put the tag in the release page. You can't do that.
No. So
okay.
I'm trying to think of the old one. No, I guess the old one didn't do that either. So no, yeah, right now it's only new tags.
Okay.
Yeah, but from the API standpoint, if I remember correctly, we just get a tag name, and if it's existing, we just take. So it's just a UI limitation, right? Just something on the front end.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we could do all that work and update the UI without any backend changes.
All right, I'm creating that issue right now, Nathan, and we can weigh it, prioritize it, and maybe that can be a low-hanging fruit that we can ship since that there's no back-end changes on it.
Yeah, and we probably should do that first because if we remove the release notes from the other tag, suddenly there's no way to create a release from an existing tag.
Exactly.
So
you kind of shoot yourself in the foot there.
Yeah.
Well, it would hopefully be a minor change, right? If the API already supports it.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. It's mostly just figuring out how we want the form to look in the front end.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Do I understand right that currently, like, we haven't released it, new release page? So people who are used to click like new release button on the releases page and enter in the tag information there, like, will be very surprised when they install 13.3 and can't do that anymore. Is it correct?
The button will direct them to a different page. Yeah. Sorry, Sean, what were you saying?
I was going to say, I kind of said, could you say that again? But did you say they'll be surprised because they can't see the release notes anymore on the page?
No. I mean, if you are creating releases from the releases page by clicking to new release button, and you were entering the whole information, like, I was actually mistaken a little. If you were used to creating the releases from existing tags and doing this from the releases page, then right now you won't be able to do so.
You weren't ever able to.
Yeah.
You'd have to do it in the API.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's how it pull onto the releases page. So it's no change in from, like, they'll see a new form when they click the new releases button, but they still won't be able to create one from an existing tag. And that's not a change in what they've been able to do.
Yeah, I see. Sorry, just was mistaken.
Oh, no, sorry.
Not to overcomplicate the front end part of this, but would it be nice to, for example, if you type in a tag name that is created, well, then it indicates it that it's already existing, or there's even a drop down, type ahead drop down on unused tags, for example. I don't know, maybe that's overdoing it.
Yeah, it would be nice at the moment. If I ran into this the other day, there's a few validation errors that we don't catch on the front end. So one is, like, if you try to create a new release on an existing tag, you just get a generic error message. So it'd be nice to, like, either validate that kind of inline or suggest the next one or something like that.
Yeah.
What's that case, Nathan? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so on this new release page we just released, if you type in a tag name that already exists and try to submit the form, I think there's just a generic message that you get that says this form, something went wrong, and it doesn't tell you why.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. So, and there's a few other, like if your tag name is badly formatted, the same thing happens. I think there's maybe like 3 different validations that the back end does that we don't do in the front end.
Do you have this documented somewhere, or you have an issue for that, so I can also have a look?
I haven't opened an issue, but I can do that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, this error sounds kind of strange, because like the way I remember this API working is just, okay, we know already this tag, so we don't need to create it, and we just will even ignore SHA if it's different. So it sounds quite strange. I thought that API should just do whatever you want.
I think if you include a ref parameter, that implies that you are creating that tag. So I think if you give an existing name of a tag with a ref, then the API will reject that. But I'd have to test that to be sure.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite, but I guess we need to check both of them.
So in summary, what have we agreed?
So I am going to close out that update issue that Nathan created. I already created the issue for that create a release from an existing tag. That'll be the first step that we go here. I think we can do that step with first, and then the second and third steps will be release notes, removals from tags, and then hopefully I'll have some validation on workflows that are around commits and branches and how people want to experience that association, and we can update the new release form to select from all those various sources. And then eventually we'll need to get to the draft releases concept and allow people to create a new release without a tag so that they can then later associate an existing tag once they create it.
And once we reach that point, we'll also be able to support releases that don't have tags, right?
Yeah, the draft releases would be the exact, yeah, that's a feature that we'd be implementing that would allow tagless releases.
Yeah. And I guess kind of auxiliary was the point that you just brought up, Nathan, about the errors on the page displaying properly.
Yep, right.
That could be
probably
anywhere.
Fix that whenever, as far as a tech debt issue goes, for sure.
Wow, we just created some issues for ourselves.
But we saved one issue. We removed that one. So now we're like +4 versus +5. Awesome. Well, I know that we're at time. Thank you all so much. This was super valuable for me. I don't think we would have been able to do this asynchronously. So thank you for meeting face-to-face on this. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.